So, as I said at this point in the week, at some point we will be looking at the bigger picture. What happened at the local elections? Obviously, Labour lost Hartlepool, but there were significant gains in other areas, especially by the Greens and even the Lib Dems. Like I say, the Lib Dems ended up taking Sheffield City Council. That's a big win for them. And, of course, throughout the other areas of the UK, there were other significant wins. Seats were lost, others were gained elsewhere. Pretty much the story of the night. Overall, interesting patterns certainly coming. And like I say, very often local elections can sort of point the direction as to what may be happening in the future. Sometimes it can be difficult to tell. Like I say, in the next general election, not only that, we will have boundary changes. That will play a huge part in the general election. We don't know how much, because obviously it's one of those things of when you do these boundary changes, you don't know what the effect is going to be until after the vote. Also, potentially as well, we have the ID card system. I am very much opposed to the current system, how it is being in place. The only way that I would essentially agree to this be put in place for people having an ID card system to stop voter fraud. By the way, voter fraud never ever happens in the UK. Like I say, in every election, be it general or local, I have never ever had to show my ID. No voter fraud has ever taken place. Like I say, it never happens. Ever. And yet, all of a sudden, massive problem. We've got to have ID cards. Okay, great. What are you going to do? Oh, you've got to have a driving license or passport. Unfortunately, this very does much affect the young and the poor. And it would essentially stop, I think the estimates are at something like 3.5 million people from voting. That's a lot of people. And I think that's a rough estimate. That may be low, that may be too high. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. But if Boris suddenly goes, okay, we're going to do this, but we're also going to give free IDs to everyone, excellent, perfect, I'm okay with that, because quite frankly, you should not have to pay to vote. End of story, because you have to pay for a passport, you have to pay for a driving license. If this is going to be brought in, then I think this should immediately be challenged at the High Court. And I think that how that would go, I'm not 100% sure. We'd have to wait and see what happens. But, of course, we're talking about big picture, local elections, and what happened in Yorkshire. So before we dive into that, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you to all those people who do support me that way. So, this comes from the Yorkshire Bylines, and the title is What We Can Learn from the Local Elections in Yorkshire. So, the local elections have certainly produced some interesting results. A poor media cycle from the Hartlepool by-election and the loss of Labour councillors nationwide has taken to lead to a panic within Labour and a low-key reshuffle by Keir Starmer on Sunday night. Questions are being raised about the current direction of the leadership and whether Starmer is the right person for the job. This article won't answer those, mostly because they can't be answered given the unique circumstances of these elections. However, the results from Yorkshire do present a milestone of the political trends in the region, which give us some answers as to its future direction. So, the detailed results in full at the end of this article, but the headline figure for the number of councillors is Labour was 272, that was down by 35, Conservatives 78, up by 39, Liberal Democrats 35, up by 8, Greens 10, up by 6, Independents 14, that's down by 5, and UKIP with 0, down by 12. So, a continuing trend within England is that the country's metro mayors have had an impact on the results. Conservative gains have fallen largely within the West Midlands and North East, where mayors Andy Street and Ben Howden have been pushed as high-profile successes, Similarly, Labour has held steadfast in the northwest, where Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham have presented strong local leadership. The results from Yorkshire also show how this has had an impact. A borough like Doncaster might give Labour's national given Labour's national performance have seen more conservative gains, with an older and whiter population than comparable boroughs in 2017. The UKIP plus Conservative vote share was much greater than that of Labour's. Throw this into the mix of the fact that both the Greens and the Yorkshire Party made a major play for the council, and some significant losses might have been expected. However, the Labour vote held steady in the city, albeit with some small Conservative gains. Doncaster Mayor Rhys Jones is broadly popular, having coming runner-up in the 2018 World Mayor Prize and receiving a CBE in 2017. She became prominent in the pandemic for being amongst the first to offer free school meals when pressure came on the Westminster government to do the same. In comparison, the Labour Council in Sheffield became synonymous with a tree felling scandal and received a high degree of public scrutiny from the local Greens. As a result, 2021 was Labour's worst year in the city since the boundary changes in 2016. The party lost 3 seats to the Lib Dems and 5 to the Greens, including that of their local council leader, Bob Johnson, with control of the council as well. However, the failure of Humberside Police and the Crime Commissioner Ken Heath to get re-elected shows the limits of the personal vote. While Hunter has undeniably done a great job, and the Conservative campaign was disorganised, and broader voting trends towards the Conservatives in Humberside and North East Lincolnshire were enough to swing this race. This shows that, contrary to popular belief, local elections aren't decided on a national swing alone. If opposition parties want to increase their success at a local level, they need to prove that residents are delivering change for the local area. And the perseverance of high-profile figures like Mayor Ross are vital in this effort. This was also the first truly post-UKIP/Brexit party set of local elections, and it is clear that their voters are going in one direction. Most of the Conservative gains in Yorkshire were on the back of the collapse of the UKIP vote, picking up both former UKIP wards or ones where the UKIP Conservative vote was previously split. Rotherham is a key example of this. In 2016, when the council was last elected, UKIP won 14 of the council's 63 seats, while the formerly UKIP, now Rotherham Democratic councillors did win a few wards. The overwhelming proportion of their votes went to the Conservatives. The story of the splits also on the left continued. In such as wards as Anston and Woodsets, the Labour and Liberal Democrat vote combined was greater than that of the Conservatives. But this split means that 3 Conservatives were elected from the ward. And pundits have already pointed to Yorkshire seats such as Doncaster North and Normington and Castleford, Pontefract and Ed Miliband's and Yvette Cooper's seats as places where, like in Hartlepool, the Brexit Party plus Conservative votes was far greater than the Labour majority. If something isn't done, either to find more progressive votes or to reduce competition amongst opposition parties at the local constituency level, the Conservative advances in the constituency level may continue well into 2024. Leading into the local elections, speculation was rife that the circumstances of the pandemic and the less toxic Labour leader would disadvantage the Greens and Liberal Democrats, which had both made gains at Labour's expense in the Yorkshire during the Corbyn years. But 2021 showed this not to be the case. The main victory of both these parties came in their aforementioned successes in Sheffield. Similarly, the Lib Dems also made decent gains in Rotherham and Hull, where they had a strong presence. The Greens also did very well in West Yorkshire in the mayoral race, finishing 4th with around 9% of the vote after picking up councillors in a few districts as well. There is no sign, however, that outside of the liberal university cities like Sheffield, either party is able to challenge Labour in the long run. The mayor plans by both Greens in Hull and Doncaster seem to have been unsuccessful in this cycle, and the Liberal Democrats may well be disappointed by the performance in West Yorkshire council elections. The biggest surprise, however, of the weekend was when the West Yorkshire mayoral election was counted. The overall competition predicted went to the Labour's Tracy Barban, and surprises came in the unusually high turnout, the figure of about 35%, and the appearance of Bob Buxton of the Yorkshire Party in third place. Although the Yorkshire Party may not have won any councillors at the district level this year, their strength in this mayoral race shows not just a strong campaign on the ground, but a sincere desire in the region to have a greater say in its decision making. With devolution deals for North Yorkshire and of the East Ridings in the works, Yorkshire may have found 4 mayors governing it by 2024. Whether this can result in a city region-wide governance is now up for grabs. Hold on, let me go through these results. So these are results from my own Barnsley. So Labour actually lost 1 seat in this time. But we gained 17. Liberal Democrats were 3. They gained 3. Conservatives still have 1, so there was absolutely no gain. And then the Barnsley Independents, as I had somewhat predicted, they lost both their seats. Again, not too surprising because, like I say, I did say at the time the pandemic had significantly damaged, I think, their ability to actually get out and communicate their message to the people. But like I say, at least they weren't picked up by the Conservatives, which is good. Like I say, going forward, we have to prepare for the next general election, and we have to be aware that now we are in a post-UKIP Brexit Party world, and it has been very clear that these results are going to go to, ultimately, the Conservatives. So we are in a position now of either A, we have to go with a progressive alliance, and Labour and Lib Dems actually generally have to sit down and a general talk about a progressive alliance, how it works, and what policies they are going to do going forward. That has to happen. If that does not happen, then during that election, I am going to have to sit here and convince people, both voting Liberal Democrats and Greens, and, predominantly those people, that if you want to get rid of the Conservatives, the only way you will be able to do that is through the Labour Party. And I feel that, unfortunately, might be the direction I have to go during that particular election. But like I say, we have to have some policies from Starmer. We have to have some policies, because ultimately, that is what the main reason. No one knows what Labour stands for. The best way you can do that is to actually put out policy. So, fingers crossed, we get at least some sort of good direction. Like I say, the new strategist they brought in, what's her name? Can't remember, but she did a book about the Red Wall. Thought about buying it, was slightly put off because someone did a very good review that basically brings up the main points. Maybe it will be worth going through, I think, on a video. We'll have to see. But essentially, it sort of puts me off. And then there was another person who basically said, yeah, one of her focus groups that she did wasn't actually in what she would define a red wall county place. But again, we'll have to see how it goes. We'll have to see what she does going forward. Like I say, we need policy, because we need to talk about policy. Policy is good, and if we can get people talking about policy, then we can go, this is why you should vote for Labour for X, Y, and Z. But as always, we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. And thank you very much for watching. As always, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And as always, there is my links down below to my Patreon page and my one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, or you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.